Okay, is this thing on? Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Meteorologist Jeremy Kappell here with you, and now it looks like we may be having um, maybe an issue here with the actual camera. Let's hopefully we can get this fixed and we can get on with the program. All right, give me a moment here while we do a little bit of live troubleshooting on this Tuesday evening. I do hope you guys are doing well. There we've got something activated. I think that looks better. Okay, I think we're back. This does occasionally happen, and it happens. It's what happens when you work out of your home studio, when you're the technician and the meteorologist and the photographer and whatever else job title or hat that you need to wear. I'm glad you guys are on here, though. We've got, just getting started, Andy Dickinson, good on sound, no video. Andy, how's it going? Speaking of our friends out there, Team Rubicon, I'm sure you guys already have a team en route, if not already on location. Northern Bahamas, of course, absolutely blasted by what was once a very, very powerful hurricane Dorian just a couple of days ago, 48 hours ago. We were talking about an historically strong Category 5 storm. It had top sustained winds estimated at about 185 miles per hour. It was 2 days ago. I'm happy to report that as of today, it's a much weaker storm. It is now a Category 2 storm, but it still poses a threat to portions of the United States Southeast and beyond. So during this update, we will be providing the latest stats on that storm, and we'll also be looking across the rest of the tropics as tropic season beginning to really heat up. Right now, we're tracking not 2, 3, but actually 4 potential storms. Another one has been named today. It's Tropical Storm Fernando. And then we're going to look ahead towards the rest of the tropics as we've got another one coming off of, actually it's way out in the eastern Atlantic. That one looks more and more likely that it is going to develop in time, and also one across the north central Atlantic. So Fernand, I should say not Fernando, Fernand, Hurricane Dorian, and then again the 2 other storms that look like they will be named in time. More than likely, 15 people on here currently. Andy, we have teams on the ground in the Bahamas and all along the East Coast. That's Team Rubicon. Andy, we appreciate your service, by the way. Andy, he's a firefighter out at the Brighton office, and he's been there for quite some time, but also volunteers his time with Team Rubicon. And check them out if you haven't had an opportunity to do so. They do great work. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the latest. I've been loading in some satellite imagery, and actually I don't have that in yet. It's loading in, but I can take you on over to some of our College of DuPage site and take a look at the latest of what's happening out there all across the landscape. This is the Atlantic Basin, and it's busy. Looks like we got one bad little satellite frame there, but you see obviously Dorian, Hurricane Dorian, continuing to spin cycle off the eastern seaboard of Florida. We'll investigate Dorian coming up, but also you can see another storm in the western Gulf of Mexico. That is Ferdinand, newly formed tropical storm today. Right now, winds are minimal, about 40 miles per hour. It's drifting off to the west, and it will likely make an impact just south of Texas, where South Texas, Brownsville included, could see some pretty hefty rainfall totals with that storm. The third, located across the northwestern Atlantic, and they're giving this one about a 50% chance of becoming a named storm in the next 48 hours. That's the one you see right here. Follow my cursor out to the western Atlantic, make that the eastern Atlantic. This storm will likely gain a name very soon. And this one's got a lot of real estate to work with, so we'll want to watch this. Currently located west of Cabo Verde in the far eastern sections of the Atlantic. So that's one that we'll be watching for quite some time. Currently it is about 9:04 Eastern time, and just kind of wanted to continue with our discussion from the last couple of days. While Dorian does not pose the threat that it did, obviously it's a storm that has caused a lot of destruction. So we did want to take a look back at some of what has occurred across the Bahamas at last check. Somewhere around 15,000 homes are estimated to have been damaged or destroyed by this storm. So here's a look at some of the social media reports coming in as I've been scanning my Twitter feed. And a lot of that destruction right there in the Abacos Islands. Here's a look at a report. This is coming in from CNN. You can see what they're showing from Great Abaco Island in the Bahamas. Just utter destruction as you would expect from a high-end Cat 5. At the time that it was reaching this island nation, this part of the Bahamas, I should say, and Great Abaco Island just took a direct hit from one of the worst type of hurricanes you will ever see. And clearly some really bad images coming out of there. Unfortunately, we've had confirmation of at least 5 fatalities. That number could go up in time. I'm certainly hoping that it won't. Yeah, bad situation for them. But as mentioned, we're very happy to say that storm was not as strong as it was. We are looking at some improvements in that category, as it's not quite as powerful. All right, this is a look at where it's going. I'm going to bring up that satellite image. I'm waiting for it to load. Looks like I might have to try to come back to that, and that'll be fine. I can show you, however, some live radar out of Melbourne, Florida. If you're familiar with the Florida coast, it's right there in the central sections of Florida. See if we can't bring that latest image up for you. And I'm going to try to turn my satellite image off. There we go. Okay, so this is the projected path by the wharf. It is bringing it very close to, it is bringing basically onshore near the North Carolina, South Carolina border. But it should be in a weakened state. We're expected to come on shore perhaps as a Category 2 storm. Not quite the beast that it has been. Maybe a little weaker than where it is right now, which would be okay. Wind field associated with that, you can see as it crawls its way to the northwest initially, before turning northeast by the time it approaches the South Carolina border. I think that the main threats with this, although there will be some storm surge flooding, it's going to be the very heavy rainfall on the north side of the storm. Some banding and some training of those bands could lead to some localized flooding, where up to about 10 inches of rain possible with this hurricane before it finally begins to pick up steam. So it's going to take a little while for that to occur. So I want you guys to be aware of that. Here's a look at the radar imagery right now out of Melbourne, Florida, central eastern shoreline. You can see located a short distance to the south of Cape Canaveral, where that rather large eye, it's just looming just off to the west. Put this into motion, and you can see it's beginning to turn to the northwest. It was completely stationary for about 24 hours, and now finally we're going to watch it as it crawls its way to the north. Seeing some heavy banding out here, by the way. Very heavy tropical downpours from Daytona Beach, strong thunderstorms, Deltona to Orlando to Kissimmee, St. Cloud. Also Lake Wales, out towards Lake Okeechobee, seeing those outer bands as they're making their way basically from north to south across central portions of the Floridian Peninsula. This storm will track to the north in time, and as mentioned, will pose a threat to the shoreline of both South Carolina and North Carolina. Right now, the National Hurricane Center does have active hurricane warnings in effect for portions of the Florida East Coast, right there on the immediate shoreline, and now also portions of South Carolina and also North Carolina. So that's as that storm continues to lift to the north, we'll continue to watch again for some high waves, definitely some storm surge flooding in those inlets, and then the rainfall again will be pretty terrific. This is the way it looks over on our weather graphics machine here. And you can see that hurricane warning extends from just north of Fort Lauderdale all the way to near Savannah, Georgia. And then again, a secondary warning already in effect. That is in effect for Myrtle Beach, also Wilmington, North Carolina. Hurricane watch is posted further north and east. And it does cover the entirety of the outer the barrier islands outside of North Carolina. So you guys look out because it's moving in your direction. So pretty powerful storm still. As mentioned, we're tracking not one but several storms out in the Atlantic at this time. Let's take a couple questions or comments. We've got CBM Cat family in Melbourne and Palm Bay, which they're definitely seeing some wind and some rain, but the worst of which will remain offshore. What is the wind speed? Currently, it's clocking at 110 miles per hour. Latest information coming in from the National Hurricane Center concerning Dorian. Sustained winds at about 110. This is the 8 p.m. advisory. It's currently moving to the northwest at about 6 miles per hour. So it's beginning to pick up a little bit of forward momentum. Minimal central pressures come way up from where it was. It was down at about 912 millibar. Now it's at about 959 millibars. So it's filled in quite a bit, thanks in large part to the fact that it was spinning over that same area. That allowed that water to cool, bringing up what we call upwelling associated with the wave action of that storm that has artificially cooled the waters around that hurricane. And so it's kind of choking itself off from its main supply of fuel. As it lifts to the north, however, that's going to change in time, because as it lifts to the north, it will eventually run into some warmer water again. This is the wind field associated with it according to the WRF model. And this is what it's going to be running into. Very warm ocean waters of between 29 and 30 degrees Celsius, so about 84 to 87 degrees. And that's plenty warm enough to reinvigorate the storm some. So I would not be surprised if it re-strengthened some before making a run at the South Carolina, North Carolina shoreline. So that could cause some issues here in the days to come. Let's take you on over to the Storm Prediction Center. Again, we were filtering through some of the reports coming through on Twitter and some pretty bad images. Again, this is out of the northern Bahamas, particularly Abaco, the Abacos Island, so hard hit by this particular storm. Now, this is what the Hurricane Center is tracking, not one, not two, not three, but actually 4 systems. They don't all have names yet, but they will likely in the near future. With Dorian, again, just off the Floridian Peninsula, that's a newly formed tropical storm Ferdinand. It looks like Ferdinand will remain south of the Texas border, but not by a lot, as it drifts to the west, likely making landfall sometime over the next 48 hours. Here's a look at Ferdinand and its potential track. And in fact, has it coming onshore either sometime tomorrow afternoon or early on Thursday. So within 24 to 36 hours to be more precise. Otherwise, out there in the Atlantic, we've got Tropical Depression 8. This looks to pose no problems as we're hoping that it just drifts off to the north as a tropical storm. But again, it is expected to become named. That's the one that's off of the African coast. No word yet on what the expectation is with the other tropical cyclone that's out there, but we'll be watching it nonetheless. Right now, most models keeping the Atlantic busy as we go throughout the next several days, probably weeks ahead. There's a look at that tropical satellite showing 1, 2, 3, 4 systems on your map. There they are again via the National Hurricane Center. And then here you go with the GFS forecast map. Generally speaking, and I'm going to forward this in time, there's Dorian. That is the immediate threat with Ferdinand making its way onshore the eastern shoreline of Mexico, just south of Texas and Brownsville, maybe tomorrow afternoon. Meanwhile, you'll notice the other two storms out in the Atlantic, they're going to generally lift to the north, being swept out to sea from this large trough of low pressure, which you can see right here. So this trough swinging into the eastern United States, in addition to bringing some cooler air for the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, it's also going to help to sweep three of those storms away from the United States. It's going to take a little while before it grabs Dorian, but it's going to, and then it's going to sweep them all away. Hopefully we can keep that trend going, because that would be great news as we go throughout the next the next week ahead. Beyond that, there's no promises here. All right, so Don, Jeremy, so it looks as if Dorian has made its way past Fort Lauderdale. Is that correct? That's our good friend Don Luzecki. That is correct. It's to the north, and really they're in the clear. They're going to have some wind. They're going to get a little rain in the backside of the storm, but overall things are looking pretty good for our friends down there in South Florida. So no major issues expected there. But thanks for the comment there, Don. And then G. Kelly on here, after having one major hurricane travel through, does that change any conditions that would make the next hurricane less or more severe? It depends on timing, how much time in between, because the ocean waters will need time to recover in that part of the Bahamas, but it shouldn't take too long with the Gulf Stream located right there. It should help to replenish the now cooler waters over the northern Bahamas with, again, what you would expect this time of the year, water temperatures running in the mid 80s at least. So I would say within 3, 4, 5 days, those waters will likely recover. So it takes a little while. I think within a week for sure, you'll have full recovery. All right, so who else do we have on here? I am bringing back up that radar information. I'll have that up in just a moment. In the meantime, it's about 9:16. I don't want to run this one too long. I want to kind of keep it shorter than what we have been. We've been kind of heavy when it comes to our coverage of Dorian, for good reason. The concern obviously was a lot greater a couple of days ago for the mainland United States. Obviously, still a concern. For those that are being impacted so much down there in the Bahamas, but at least the threat for the mainland United States, not quite what it was. And so that, my friends, is a good thing, but our prayers do go out to all those that were impacted by the storm as it paid a visit again over the northern Bahamas. So hard hit were Grand Bahama Island and also Abacos, the main island there associated with the Abacos Island chain in the Bahamas, just absolutely pummeled by that storm system. Hopefully we get those guys back on track sooner than later. Our friends over there at Team Rubicon, we know that they're helping out with that cause. Let me pull that radar data back up in just a moment. While that's polling, a couple more questions or comments on here. We've got about 26 people live. And you're welcome there, Kelly. And then I think I addressed that from Charlotte. What is the wind speed? Dorian, 110 mile per hour winds right now. And then I think that should get us back up to speed. So again, we appreciate you guys stopping by. One last look at the radar imagery right there out of Melbourne, Florida. And that's a pretty nasty looking storm, my friends. But we are very fortunate for our friends down there in the Sunshine State that the bulk of that storm is going to remain to your east. As it crawls to the north, expect, again, those feeder bands to continue to come on shore. High winds and torrential rainfall and some localized flooding associated with that. But the worst of those winds remaining offshore, and that will be a good thing. So some positive things to look forward to for the state of Florida. This storm will gradually move to the north. So question is, does it make landfall up here in South Carolina, North Carolina? The latest indications are that there's a good chance it will, as there has been warnings issued by the National Hurricane Center. So additional warnings have been issued up here. Make your way from near So the warnings extend all the way through the Florida Peninsula into southeastern Georgia near Savannah, Charleston, as well. Included in that, you make your way up towards Myrtle Beach in Wilmington, North Carolina. That's where the active warnings are located. The storm looming some distance to your south. We'll continue to monitor the situation, and as warranted, we'll provide you with more tropical weather updates. In the meantime, you guys stay safe, have an enjoyable night. Hopefully you're not working too hard this week. It is Tuesday, coming off of a long weekend for a lot of folks, so just hang in there, and if conditions warrant, we'll come back with more live updates on this channel. Be sure to follow me if you don't already. Subscribe. That's Weather Live Now, and hit the notification bell so that you will be notified next time we're live. That's it for me, though. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.